4,500 of the best laborers worked on the building every day. They worked around the clock for 7 days a week, including holidays. They would have to assemble roughly 10,000 tons of steel per month to make their deadline. After erecting the beams for 1 month, the workers completed the frame for the basement. Working at incredible speeds were teams of riveters in groups of 4. Approximately 35 to 40 of these teams worked simultaneously on different parts of the building. They were responsible for fastening the steel frame into place. The heater would fire up the bolts to temperatures between 1,000 and 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. At that precise moment, the heater would grab the rivet and toss it straight to the catcher, who caught it with a can. The rivet was then jammed into a rivet hole and smashed into a wide cap, permanently merging together 2 more sections of the skyscraper framework. As the summer of 1930 drew to a close, the structure continued to rise rapidly. In fact, it rose so rapidly that the architects could not keep up. They anxiously and quickly began drawing up plans for each individual floor, just in time for them to actually be implemented. But it was the steel workers who faced the sharpest deadline. There was more than twice the structural steel in the Empire State Building than in the Chrysler Building, and winter was fast approaching, which would make it nearly impossible to complete their tasks. As was so often with the Starretts, when there was a problem, there was soon to be a solution. The derrick was a large, multifaceted crane, ideal for hoisting steel beams and other heavy supplies. There were as many as 16 derricks working on the Empire State Building at the same time. They consisted of movable booms, cables, and pulleys, which allowed the workers to place their heavy freight precisely into place. As the building grew taller, workers actually built around the derricks. The large cranes miraculously were able to pull themselves up onto each floor so they could keep up with the rapid growth of the building. As a result, a stunning 22 stories of steel was erected in just 22 working days. It was a pace that broke all previous records of construction. As the winter drew near, interior work such as painting and bricklaying was well underway. These skilled laborers also had strict deadlines, and the rapidly growing height of the building was beginning to slow up the delivery of supplies to the workers. So the Starrett brothers introduced yet another innovative technique to help the workflow. They produced a rail car system. The rails were placed around the perimeter of many of the floors. The cars were loaded with supplies and then pushed to the next station, saving incredible amounts of time. Cafeterias were also installed on many floors in order to ease time. Never before had workers been able to eat on site. Meanwhile, many of the preparations were underway for the electric elevator. In 1854, Elijah Otis had invented a safety device that prevented elevators from falling if the hoisting cable broke, which paved the way for passenger travel rather than just cargo. But it wasn't until 1880 that Ernst Werner von Siemens built the world's first electric elevator, which could ascend at a rate of over 1 floor per second. The Otis Elevator Company was commissioned to build elevators for the Empire State Building, a total of 66 elevators. Electric elevators are what made the very existence of skyscrapers even possible. Despite these advances, construction on skyscrapers in the 1930s was still very dangerous. It was projected each building would ultimately lose 1 man for every floor built. The Empire State Building consists of 102 floors, yet only 5 deaths were reported during its construction. The Starrett brothers' regard for the workers was unprecedented. They even set up an infirmary so that physicians could come by the job twice a day to treat any workers in need. This was extraordinary for the times, and in fact, is rarely done today. As the intense labor continued, the giant steel frame began to disappear. The Art Deco design was extremely advantageous and worked to speed up construction. The architect ordered the installation of long metal strips called mullions to run the entire length of the building. Strips of Indiana limestone were placed between them so that their edges didn't have to be carefully finished. The mullions covered the hastily cut stone. Once the limestone was set into place, aluminum spandrels were added. These would span the distance between the windows when they were added. Together, these elements formed a frame, allowing the windows to be inserted without scaffolding, saving thousands of hours of labor. In total, over 200,000 feet of Indiana limestone was used, and over 6,400 windows were put into place, in addition to 730 tons of stainless steel and aluminum. These innovations allowed the workers to build at record speeds. By the fall of 1930, work on the steel skeleton was complete. It reached a height of 1,048 feet and 86 floors. Still in the shadow of the Chrysler Building, the most distinctive feature of the Empire State Building had yet to be added, and once word leaked out as to what it was, New Yorkers could hardly believe it.